All right, guys. So for Memorial Day, we're not going to do Murph. We've moved that to 4th of July, but we are going to do Riley. Different hero workout. It's a ton of volume. So 3 miles of running, 150 burpees is probably too much for just about any of our athletes. There's obviously a few people that can do this RX and be okay, but just be mindful of that if athletes talk to you. Scales are obviously just going to be distance and reps. That's a good scale. So maybe 800-meter run, 80 burpees, 800-meter run, or we can change it to rowing and biking. So 100-calorie bike, 50 burpees, 100-calorie bike. 100 calories might be a little bit too much, but it would be similar to a 1.5 mile run most likely. But you get the idea. So scale that as you find appropriate. We didn't program Riley originally, and so there are burpees 2 days in a row, but not everyone will do Riley. And for people that have done Riley, they could always scale or change the burpees on Tuesday depending on what source. So realistically for me, when I did switch around the week, I thought that people's legs were going to be the most sore from 3 miles of running and all the burpees because that's still using your legs for pretty much all the movements. Obviously, their pecs and shoulders may be sore from the burpees, and you do swing those when you run. So essentially just choosing what I think is going to be sore. So I did move it to an upper body day on Tuesday, which is why, again, there's burpees 2 days in a row. We're going to continue back squatting and cleaning, kind of something we started last week as a cycle. But other than that, we need exposure to a lot of other things. And so I want to expose people to different time domains. So last week for our 2 conditioning type days, one was a 15-minute AMRAP, one was about a 20-minute for time workout, and then we had 90-second intervals. Okay, the other 2 days were lifting. So we haven't done anything that's kind of a moderate interval, so that's why we have the 5-minute timer and the 5-minute rest. It's a different format than what we've done at the gym recently. We have gymnastics, which we haven't done a ton of at the gym with the strict handstand push-up. So again, getting exposure to that. Dumbbell snatch, not something we've done since we've been back at the gym very much. So just trying to, again, get movement combinations and time domains that we haven't been doing. So get people familiar to those. Scale for the handstand push-ups is strict press, but obviously they could also kip if they really want to work on those and have exposure to those. Okay. This should be not too much moving, depending on what square they choose. Obviously, if you have athletes that are doing handstand push-ups, there's 6 squares that are in the rig right next to the wall. 3 in our one side, and then with the 6 on the other side, 3 of them are against the wall. The other squares are close to the wall now that ski ergs are moved, and so there should be enough wall room and then room for the rower where there's not too much movement. There obviously will have to be some movement, most likely if everyone does handstand push-ups, but otherwise shouldn't be too much movement here for the day. Back squat, we're going to build off of what we did last week. So last week we did 3 sets of 8. We also had tempo. So taking the tempo away, still going to build, but we're going to start at whatever their middle set was last week. So we're just going to increase the loading, take the tempo away, and then keep everything the same for the most part. So they should end at a higher loading, and they should still feel good because we've taken the tempo away. And obviously, again, we'll build on this next week. With shortened classes, we don't have a lot of time to do too much more. So instead of doing accessory like we did last week, we're going to vary that. So we're going to do 50 front squats for time at a light weight, and this can kind of be whatever people need it to be. They can do, sets of 10 with rest if they do want it to be more accessory. We can have someone, try and go unbroken if they really want to push that muscle endurance. So there's lots of ways that people can kind of change this to get whatever they want out of that shortened class period. Thursday is a doozy. One of the reasons I did not change the burpees to more pulling on Tuesday specifically is because the amount of pulling on Thursday is probably going to wreck people. So every 5 minutes for 25 minutes, we have 30 calorie row, 25 ring rows, and 20 push-ups. I'll probably go into sugar water and change that calorie row to be a little bit less for our ladies, just because the 30 calorie row for the gentlemen is going to take a while. For the ladies, we want to be in that same time frame, especially in an interval setting, so I will most likely go in and change that. So just kind of be aware of that. I did this one last week, way worse than I anticipated. I always knew that row into any kind of pulling is pretty hard. If you remember a while back, we did our row into 2 rounds of strict Cindy. I remember how terrible the pull-ups felt. Ring rows feel just as bad. So people are going to need to break this up right off the bat to make these intervals in 3 minutes or less, which would be more of an ideal work-rest ratio versus taking 3.5 or 4 minutes and getting almost no rest. Scaling reps is always going to be the first thing, but we can scale the movements to whatever they need to be. Move their feet out on the ring rows. Push-ups can be on, foam rollers. Probably not boxes. They take up a lot of room in the square, so they could do the low bar. I've seen that a lot. I like that. Foam rollers great, bands great. Knees, as long as their elbows and shoulders are in a good position, is great as well. Okay. Friday, going to be our clean day, and what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 power clean and push press at last week's weight every minute on the minute. So if they're able to do clusters of 3 with 30 seconds of rest, asking them to do 1 every minute on the minute for 10 minutes should be okay. It might not be towards the end of the EMOM. It really depends on the weight. But theoretically, they're going to get a lot more rest between reps. But instead of doing 3 at last week's weight, now they're doing 10. So the volume of that loading has gone up. After that, we're going to do a dumbbell complex. So EMOM format again, deadlift and lunges. Just because we did do a lot of squatting on Wednesday, but we haven't done tons of pulling when it comes to lower body pull. Obviously upper body pull Thursday's a lot, but lower body pull we haven't done a lot of, so really just trying to focus on that a little bit more. Posterior, obviously lunges are still knee flexion, but they are a lot of glute and other things as well. So just again trying to get different movements in, and vary format, vary movement from week to week. Saturday, it's always kind of our free day, but in general, I am trying to be cognizant of what we're doing on Fridays. We have short class time, so being cognizant of that, and just kind of programming those to go with the rest of the week for right now until we change that. So I know we're going to clean on Friday. We're going to do snatch tech work to begin, and that's just something to do to eat up a little bit more time in class, because really what we had for that day is that 4-time workout of shoulder to overhead, and double unders. So again, double unders we haven't done. Shoulder to overhead, the push press from the day before shouldn't be too bad. It's only 10 reps. It's not going to be a max out. Obviously a good amount of pushing with push-ups on Thursday, but they didn't go overhead that day. They went in that horizontal vector, so I still think that shoulder to overhead will be okay. We're still giving them 48 hours for the most part, so people should be taking rest days, changing movements if they need to, etc. But yeah, so that's why Saturday looks the way it does, even though, again, I know that they did do some hip extension, a good amount of hip extension on Friday. The reason we're doing that on Saturday is primarily technique work, which is why even the RX weight, the maximum weight, is relatively light compared to what our strongest people in the gym can do. And I hope this helps. Let me know if you have questions.